I want to show you some insider secrets on how to diagnose a broken TV only by looking at it. I've got 7 broken TVs that have various problems, and I'm going to show you how much you can learn simply by the power of observation. All right, so here's our first patient. This is a 37-inch Vizio TV, and by the way, all the TVs you see here are ones that people were tossing out. I don't see any noticeable damage on this TV. So I just turned on the AC and the orange standby light came on, so that's a good sign. So let's turn it on. Oh, this turns white, so that's a good sign. That almost certainly means, oh look, there's a, oh look at that. You can see the boot logo, and now it's gone. All right, so what I was going to say is that turning this turning white, the standby light, probably means that the mainboard is getting the supply voltages that it needs, and that, seeing the logo and now not seeing anything, gives me a very significant clue. So next thing you want to do is get your flashlight, turn it on, and point it at the screen. If you're going to do this test, do it in a darker room and see if you can see anything. Like I just pushed the menu button, so I'm looking for the menu in this corner because I know that's where it typically would show. And if you see anything at all, a moving picture, any words, anything, then that tells you that there's probably a problem with the LED backlight. Now the point of this video is to show you how to make a diagnostic guess, but I want to show you a trick if you suspect that your TV has a bad LED backlight. What you want to do is get into settings, and I know it's over here on this screen, and I want to use the flashlight and use the arrows to get to the brightness setting, and then turn the brightness down to about 10% and then see what happens. All right, we have the settings where we want them, and so let's turn the TV on and see what happens. All right, there's our boot logo. Backlight is coming on a little bit. Let's see if it stays on, if we can see anything on the screen. So I don't see any signs of life on this backlight, so that trick didn't work, but sometimes it does, so it's worth giving it a try. And here's what a sample LED strip might look like behind your TV screen. This is from an edge-lit TV. You can see all these individual LED lights, and so probably on this TV, one or more of these LED lights have shorted out, and that's causing the whole backlight not to turn on. And if our little trick had worked, then these would turn on, but they wouldn't be as bright, but we'd still be able to see an image. So I'm not sure if it's worth the time to fix this TV. The next thing I'd want to measure is the power supplying those LEDs, since it's easy to get to the power supply, but it is harder to get to the LEDs themselves. So here is our next patient. It is a 39-inch Vizio TV. It's got a scratch on the screen over here. I see scratches over here, but look in the corner. They left us a helpful note. It says, doesn't turn on. So if you're going to get into fixing TVs, make sure you have both of these standard power cords laying around, because the TV will take this one or this one. This TV takes the one without the grounding plug. Let's plug it into power and we'll see if their sticker is correct or not. Oh, the standby light just came on and then it faded out. So let's try the power button. Okay, power button worked. It just turned on. This is, standby light is staying on, which is encouraging. I don't see anything else happening on the screen. So the next thing I'm going to look for is if I can turn off the TV by pushing the power button again. So I just pressed it, nothing happened. I'm going to hold it down, nothing's happening. So something is not working, telling the TV to turn off, because this light should go off. So I can press the power button to turn the TV on, but when I press it again, I can't turn the TV off. So I need to make sure that the main board is getting not only the 5 volts or 3.3 volts to turn on that standby light, but is it getting the 12 volts that it needs to run the entire main board? Now the main board is back here where all the plugs are, and there's a way that I use to figure that out. So the light is still on in the front, so there should be 12 volts coming to the main board. And if you look on the side here, most TVs have an optical output, and if you push this little door open, you should see the red light. It automatically comes on when there's 12 volts going to the main board in most cases. And you can see there is no red light going on in there. So we have the constant standby white light in the front and no red light over here on this audio output. Now there's 2 main parts to a TV. There's the power supply, and I know it's over here because this is where it plugs in, and there's the main board, which is the brains of the TV and it manages everything, and I know it's under here because of these outputs. Now the way that most TVs work is that when you plug in AC power, the power supply supplies a 5 volt or a 3.3 volt signal to the main board, and then that's the amount of power that is used to run that little white light, or to use the signaling when you push the power button on the side or on the remote control. And when you press that button, it sends a signal back to the power supply to say turn everything on, and one of those things is a 12-volt signal. So it'll send that 12 volts back to run all the circuitry on the main board. So again, my guess is that there's a problem with the 12-volt signal. So it could be a problem on the main board, or it could be a problem on the power supply, or there's some other reason why that 12-volt signal isn't being sent over to the main board. But because the screen isn't cracked, it's not broken, I would say that this TV has a very good chance of being fixed. Next, we have this 40-inch Sony TV. Now, I do know a little bit about the background of this TV because it used to be my neighbor's. It's booting up right now and I have it on a video source. But as you look at this, you can see there's clearly a problem. There's a solarized image and the colors are just not right. So just by looking at this image, we can take a pretty good guess as to what the problem is. So in your typical TV, you're gonna have a power supply and a main board, and your TV may have one of these. This is called a timing control board. This takes the data from the main board and formats it in such a way that it can be displayed on the LCD screen. So whenever you have a solarized image or weird colors like on this TV, I would tend to think that there's a problem on the timing control board. It's not taking that data from the main board and displaying it properly on the screen. So that's my guess as to what's wrong on this Sony TV. Next, we have a fairly new 43-inch Vizio TV, and you're going to see that it has a problem here. Look at these lines on the screen. And in this video, I'm not fixing any of these TVs. I'm just using powers of observation to take my best guess. So let's notice a few things on this screen. You can see wherever there's like words, there's streaks happening, and when there's solid colors, there really isn't a distortion in the image. So now we have a moving picture on the screen. You can still see these vertical lines, but there are times where there's a good image in sort of a vertical band. And what this indicates to me is that although there could be a problem with the timing control board, there's more likely a problem with the LCD panel itself. Now, why do I think this? I'd say this issue isn't a vertical line problem, though these look like vertical lines. They are misplaced copies of information, and the information are these white letters right here. And my guess is that because there is a row signaling problem, the transistors on these pixels around this area are not getting turned on at the right time to accept the correct image data. Now you might ask, why does it seem that the white color has more of a problem? And I'm really going to guess here that depending on the display technology, white colors use the most amount of power, so they charge up the capacitors on each subpixel a little bit more, and due to the signaling issue, their charge is persisting, giving you this ghosting pattern. So I think this TV's image could be brought back to life with a simple piece of tape. I made a few videos on this topic, so after you're done with this one, if you're interested, you can check out those. So what we have here is a 40-inch Samsung TV, and I was just playing with this one, and this one is tricky. The power is on, you just heard the chime. You can see where it says check signal cable. Now check this out, I can push all these buttons on the side, and nothing really happens. And there was a red light here that was blinking. That's not blinking anymore. And if I push the power button, I cannot turn the TV off. Now, when I see older Samsung TVs like this, I think of one common problem, and that is on the power supply board. Some had a common problem with faulty capacitors right here on this side of the board. And here's what a bad capacitor looks like. It is bulged at the top. Now, one trick to verify if this is the problem or not, besides looking at the bulged capacitors, is to take a hairdryer and heat up this part of the board and then turn it on. If your TV starts working normally, then you know you have bad capacitors. So that's going to be my leading hypothesis on this TV. However, I did notice with my flashlight that I can see the screen. So the TV seems like it's on. There's no backlight, there's no standby light, the buttons on the side don't respond, and I noticed in the back there was a very loose HDMI port, so that could be causing problems. So I really don't know what is the issue here. So I'm going to stick with the bad capacitor theory, because when you have these bad capacitors on that power supply, it can cause all kinds of weird symptoms. So here we have a 60-inch Vizio TV, and you tell me if you can figure out what the problem is on this TV. Now, if you're guessing that the screen is cracked, you are correct. This TV suffered an impact point right here, and watch what happens when I press on it. Just look over here, you can see I'm able to affect the whole screen by pushing on this point. There's all kinds of problems happening with this LCD screen because of that crack down there. Now, I do get this question a lot. If I see this, if I see these lines or my TV fell over, how can I fix it? And I unfortunately have to tell people, when you have a cracked LCD like this, there's nothing you can do. No matter what, you cannot fix a cracked LCD. So what I normally recommend is that people try to sell the internal boards on eBay to recoup some of the cost. So here's a 42-inch Vizio TV. So let me plug it into power. The standby light down here just came on ever so slightly, very faint. So let's see if it responds to the power button on the remote. When I push the power button, the light is on just barely. Now, while we're waiting for something to happen, if you're interested, you could grab my PDF PDF on diagnosing broken TVs. The link is down in the description. So I didn't see anything besides the standby light fading out. So let's see if it responds to the power button again. And the standby light did come on, so I'm not exactly sure what's happening. So it kind of seemed like the remote did turn the TV off, so I pushed it again to turn it back on, and then we're looking at the side here, and you can see there is a red optical light. So that presumably means that the main board is getting the supply voltages that it needs. So are we dealing with another TV with a bad backlight? I have the flashlight here to figure out. Another way that you can kind of tell is if you plugged in a known audio source to the TV while it was running and you heard sound coming out of the speakers but didn't see a picture. That might also indicate a bad backlight. Yep, there it is. It says no signal. So the TV is working, but the backlight is not working. Now off camera, I did try that brightness trick and that didn't work on this TV either. I did think it was going to work on the previous one because we saw the logo. That backlight was working a little bit, but unfortunately not so much on this one. I'd say most modern LCD TVs are full array LED. This is kind of what it looks like underneath the screen. There's lots of these LEDs and likely one or more of these are at fault. So while it's most likely the LED modules, there are other things that I have seen that it could be. It could be a problem on the power supply that's not supplying the correct voltage to the backlight, or it could be as simple as a loose connection. I've seen that too. Now, while you're always hoping it's going to be something easy to fix, replacing the LED modules is definitely doable, but it can be a pain. And that's because you have to take most of the TV apart to get to them. So here's another look at all these TVs. Let me know what you think I should do with them, if I should try to fix them or not. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and check out this video about how I diagnosed and fixed a TV that was destined for the landfill.